cases of any child ever being poisoned or injured by Halloween candy. And yet we do this thing every single year. We sort through the candy, and if it's a lollipop that is a little bit opened, we set that to the side. Or if it's some improperly packaged, whatever. We just kind of set all these things aside. But check this out. My son and my daughter come home every single year with a vat of candy that dumps on the floor to a knee high. That's probably about like that, but it feels really high. And for every piece of candy we take out of that pile and set to the side, their face drops just a little bit. And it's so sad. And you know what this teaches me? It teaches me two things. Not just that I need to turn out my lights at 8 o'clock so I can preserve the last 5 pieces of chocolate in my basket. What it teaches me is that no matter how much I have, what I really want is the stuff I can't have. If I take one piece of candy away from my child's basket, his entire vat of candy is still present right there, and yet he feels sadness over that one piece that is gone. This is the financial principle that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. And I'm going to come back to it again today and hopefully in richer fashion. And maybe we're going to dig into it in a way that really brings it home to you. But to just review a little bit, let me share with you where we've been. Because what we're talking about when it comes to money is this same principle that no matter how much we have, we want what we're not allowed to have. It's the forbidden fruit syndrome. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But let's just review. If we go back to week number 3, we learned this lesson. When we give to eternal causes, God blesses us richly. And Kelton, you're going to need to fix this thing up here for me because I don't know what just happened to it. But when we give to eternal causes, God blesses us richly. Week number 2, we learned when we release to God His 10%, we can fully receive our 90%. It's a principle we talked about called tithing. And then last week, or the first week, we learned this, that at the core of our problem is sinful selfishness. See, our money problem is not just a money problem. Our money problem is a heart problem. Jesus identified that in Matthew 6:21, when he said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." See, Jesus is trying to let us know that money acts like a barometer to where our heart is. In fact, all possessions act like a barometer about where our heart is. My children's vat of candy, pile of candy, whatever it is a barometer of where their heart is, because when you take the piece away, it shows that they're attached to the candy and not necessarily to the joy of the fact that they have the candy or the God who has provided such things as sugar to us. And they are more attached to the fact that they have some and some has been taken away. See, our money problem is a heart problem. And what I want to do is I want to take you all the way back to the beginning of this heart problem. I've referenced it 3 times so far this month. And now we're going to reference it again, but we're going to actually look at the passage. It's in Genesis chapter 2, and I printed it all out there for you so that you don't have to even flip to the page, even though it would be on like page 2 or something. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It's the account of Adam and Eve and when God created everything to begin with. It goes like this. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will surely die." And we recognize this principle that God gives us things. He hands us things. He gives us great and wonderful things, and yet there are some things he doesn't give to us. He gave to them all the trees, and he said, you can eat from any tree in the garden, but you cannot eat from this one tree in the center, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat that one, but you can eat from any one of them. And it's like we're the kid with the pile of candy, and God says, but there's one that I don't want you to have. And we feel our hearts drawn over to this one, regardless of the vast array of things God has given us. I want to draw this principle out to you because after Adam and Eve sinned, and they did eat from that tree, then we find in the book of Genesis a succession of things getting worse and worse. In fact, Adam and Eve's own son killed his own brother. And that's the story of Cain and Abel. And then as you follow the progression of humanity through the chapters from chapter 1 and 3 and 5 and 6, you eventually get to a man named Noah. And God finds Noah and he says, Noah is the only man on the face of the earth whom I can even stomach. All the rest of them, I'm sick of them, and I want to just get rid of them wholesale. So God decides he's going to absolutely wipe off the face of the planet every human being altogether, except for Noah. And then at the end of that whole flood story, we come to chapter 9, and we read this. Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall upon all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of the air, upon every creature that moves along the ground, and upon all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each man too I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man. And so once again, we have this picture where God says, I'm giving you everything. But, in fact, in both of those passages, I want you to underline that phrase, but you must not. It shows up in both of them. At the end of Genesis, the Genesis 2 passage, it says, you're free to eat from every tree, but you must not. Or then the next one, it says, I give you now everything, but you must not. Each one of those is similar there. And I just want to draw your attention to this principle that we recognized a couple weeks ago. It goes like this. God gives us access to more than he wants us to have. But we generally take more than has been given. We made the application of this a couple weeks ago in something called the tithe. And if any of you came today prepared to give a tithe, I wanted to explain to you what that little tithe rebate form is in your bulletin. We had talked about this a little bit, but there is a passage in the Bible where God says simply this. He says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouses, and the tithe refers to the first 10% of our income. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouses and just test me in this. See if I won't flood you with blessings. And so we want to trust God in this. If you come this morning and you are prepared, you want to go ahead and do this thing. You got a paycheck last week, you wrote a 10% check, and you're going to trust God on this for this next month. Then when you have that tithe rebate form, I'm telling you the truth. If you find yourself in a place of need this month,